Making RC fuel for my nitro truck, part 2. Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. In part 1 of making RC fuel, I tried using some denatured alcohol and a high quality racing castor oil, and short story, it didn't work all that well, but luckily a lot of you had a lot of great comments and said instead of using denatured alcohol, try using some gasoline antifreeze, the stuff that's in the yellow bottle. So that's exactly what I'm using today, is heat in the yellow bottle with a high quality racing castor oil. This homemade fuel is also known as 0% nitromethane. Now the stuff that I have been running in all of my nitro vehicles that I buy from the store is Sidewinder fuel. This stuff works great, but making homemade fuel is just something fun to try. The stuff that I have been using is 20% nitro with 16% oil. And I'm going to be using that oil content when I mix up my own fuel. I'm going to be using 15% of this racing oil with the balance of the 85% of this gasoline antifreeze. So how much oil to add? Let's do a quick calculation to figure out how much I should put into my mixing cup. I want to have a mixture of 15% oil with 85% alcohol. This bottle is going to be 355 milliliters. And that leaves how much oil should I put in there? When I cross multiply and divide, I get 63 millimeters. Now this, of course, over here adds up to 100%, while this side here adds up to 418 milliliters. Now when I take 63 divided by 418, I get that same 15% back, which is a great way to check the calculations. My mixing cup has 50 milliliters, 70 milliliters. I'm going to put a little mark right in between for 63. With my fill mark on the cup, all I need to do is add the oil and then add the oil into the bottle of alcohol. I'll pour the fuel into the cup to help mix up and get the rest of the oil out of the mixing cup. After finishing off a dilly bar from Dairy Queen, I've got a nice mixing stick. Get the rest of the oil mixed up in the cup, and I'll put that into the main container. Hard part's all done, the fuel is all mixed up. All right, so this is how it's going to work. I'm going to start out running the truck with regular nitro fuel, this 20% stuff. I'm gonna get the HPI Savage here all nice and warmed up and a good tune on the carburetor. Once I get the fuel tank down about halfway, I'm going to add in some of my homemade fuel, which is essentially going to cut this 20% nitro in half, so I've got the truck running on 10%. This is going to give me an opportunity to start adjusting the carburetor slowly. Once the fuel gets down low halfway, I'm going to add in more of my homemade fuel, cutting that 10% nitro content in half down to 5%. I'm going to keep doing this until I'm running just off of the homemade fuel. Let's go outside and get this truck running. Well, how to describe everything that happened without taking a whole bunch of Ritalin? I guess I'll start out with the truck itself. The 30-second history on this is I bought this used off of Facebook Marketplace. So this engine on here is getting a little old and tired, but I still think it has some life in it. And I've got a battery that is just getting done charged. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. It runs good on the Sidewinder fuel, and once I started cutting in the fuel made with this heat, it still had good speed, it ran very good, and it had a pretty decent idle to it. One thing that it is missing is that pep or that jump right off of the throttle, and that's something that we get with nitromethane. Of course, when I started reducing it with this homemade fuel, that pep off the start started to go away, but still had a lot of fun with the truck. When I started getting below 5% nitro, when I was running mainly this home brew or this homemade fuel, that is when the truck idle was very difficult to get that tuned in. If I was running at medium or high speed, the truck ran pretty decent, actually, a lot better than when I was running with denatured alcohol. So this really is the stuff to use when making homemade fuels. The truck still ran really good when I was running the equivalent of about 2.5% nitro, and when I emptied the fuel tank and put just this homemade fuel in it, when it was running at a medium to high throttle, it actually still ran really good. However, the idle settings on here were very difficult to get figured out on here. I had to take the idle adjust screw and crank it way in so that it had a very high idle just to keep the engine lit. Now, one thing to keep in mind is I'm still running the original glow plug that is designed for running nitro fuels. If I was gonna go back and do this again, I think I would have another glow plug, a super hot glow plug for running without any nitromethane. Looping back to batteries, we just heard the battery charger chime about a minute ago. I've been in the background charging batteries, and charging yet more batteries, trying to get this thing started when I was running on no nitromethane. When I started up the truck, I started out with the stock roto starter for it. This thing works great, but I emptied that battery pack out and then switched over to my drill driver, which is one of the neat features about the HPI Savage is it does have this starter shaft that if this is not available, I can always chuck it up in a drill to continue having fun outside, and that's exactly what I did today. I continued to try and start the truck until this battery emptied out, and that's kind of where I brought everything back into the shop. While all of that was going on, I was going through batteries on the glow plug starter. I went through this battery, and I've had another battery, and what we heard on the battery charger was yet another one of these little sub-C batteries just to try and get this thing started. So when the truck is started and it is running, it runs really well, but without some good start settings with running 0% nitro, this thing was a bear to get started. So why all the fuss over making homemade fuel if it really doesn't run all that well in these high performance engines? There's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, it's something fun that I wanted to try, and I thought I'd share the results with all of you. The other is the local hobby shop for me that sells this, well, it's local, but it's still over an hour away. And I thought if I could make my own fuel, I could get better control and save some time by not having to drive 2 hours round trip to the hobby store. And one of the other things is this 20% nitro cost $30 for a gallon. And I thought maybe I could save some money by using some of this. But off camera, I'm going to do a calculation because this 12 fluid ounces at 355 milliliters cost $3. And the high performance castor oil that I was running, I believe this is $15 for this container. So I'm going to do a comparison of calculate what it would cost to make a gallon of this versus just buying pre-made fuel with nitromethane in it. I'll put that somewhere up on the screen for you. Thanks for joining me in this video. I had an absolute blast running the HPI Savage around the front yard as I tried out some homemade fuel. Join me in the next video as I share some of the Facebook Marketplace finds I found over this past winter. That video coming up next. And until I see you again in the next video, don't forget to hit the like button or subscribe to this channel. Not only is it a great way to help this channel grow, it's an awesome way to connect video content like this with other great viewers just like you.